Hello, I'm Diane Birnholz, and I've talked about how all 50 states have Megan's Law sex offender registries with crucial information on them about the offenders to keep the community informed about sex offenders, their crimes, and their whereabouts. Now, what about violent offender registries? Is there a similar registry of convicted murderers in all 50 states? The answer is no. Only a handful of states have a violent offender registry. Now, that might surprise you. According to my state's official website, 3 states require violent offenders to register: Kansas, Montana, and Oklahoma. But there seem to be a few other states with some sort of reporting requirements as well, including Illinois. But the laws across states are not consistent at all on this front. Ohio apparently has a registry for people who have been convicted of DUI offenses more than 5 times, so that's a whole separate type of registry. But the few states that do have violent offender registries, some of the states require lifetime registration, while some are more limited. So, why the difference in treatment between sex offenders and murderers or other violent criminals? Why do we only have public registries for sex offenders? Well, the theory behind this is that sex offenders are much more likely to be recidivists than, say, murderers. And experts and scholars point to evidence that sex crimes tend to result more from a compulsion, like something that's going to stay with someone throughout their lifetime, whereas murder tends to be more of a one-time situational crime. The obvious exception to this would be a serial killer. For most states, there are different tiers of sex offenses with different reporting requirements depending on how violent the offenses were. The U.S. Supreme Court has upheld the constitutionality of sex offender registries and found them to be reasonably needed for public safety. Another reason there are registries primarily only for sex offenses could be that sex offenders typically get shorter sentences than those convicted of murder, and therefore they're more likely to get out of prison and go back out and live in our communities, just like David Broomer did in Fremont, California, until he was murdered. But what's hard for me to understand in all of this is that if someone is deemed so likely to reoffend that they need to be publicly named on a registry with all kinds of restrictions about where they're allowed to go, then why are they allowed to get out of prison in the first place? And also, the reality is that most people probably would want to know if the person living next door to them is a convicted murderer, even if they're not a serial killer. So how do you feel about all of this? Please leave me a comment. Thank you.